Welcome back, everyone. Episode 19, The Fauci Files, with an incredible special guest. To my guest, I usually pitch to the guest and I let them introduce their name, talk about why you're here and what you do, and then we'll pull up your logo. So I'm going to pitch over.
All right, I'm Brandon Wright. I run a small entertainment and production business called Wright Live, and we love local bands. And I'm here to talk with you about some really cool stuff today, and I appreciate you guys having me on the air.
No, we're happy to have you here. Now, Brandon and our relationship go back to COVID, to lockdown.
Yeah, correct.
So we first met when you were doing the Acoustic Cafe at Bad Habits as an effort of keeping live music alive during the pandemic. And so much has changed in that time. So I thought you and I would take a look at how some of the narrative has evolved. But before we get into that subject, I thought we're going to take a deep dive on Mr. Brandon Wright himself.
Okay.
So let's start with the new Wright Live logo. Let's talk about who did that. One, and I want you to plug how people can follow you and some of the social media that you're active on.
Okay. Well, kind of how this came about is, I've rocked the old logo for several years since we started our business about 5, almost 6 years ago. It was great, but I felt it was time for an upgrade, time for a change. We're growing as a business and we're growing as people. So I actually contacted Dale Sims, excited out of my brains, hey, I need this. And he came up with that in not very much time at all, and I really just love it.
I do too. I thought it was really great. So let's talk about some of the things that you actually do at Wright Live. So anyone that was watching this show, what are some of the services and how would they get a hold of you?
So a lot of the services we provide, we obviously deal with bands and performers, but we do comedy, weddings, bar mitzvahs. Actually, we got asked to do a bar mitzvah. All kinds of events. I really enjoy working with local Winchester community. The city of Winchester. We've done some events for them. We've done events for Frederick Douglass Park and Family Day, which is a very long running traditional event. So we've had the opportunity to be a part of a lot of really cool things. And probably the best ways to reach out to us, you can get in touch with us via email, wrightlive@gmail.com. You can get us at Wright Live Events, and you can get us on Instagram, Wright Live, Facebook. There's all kinds of ways to get in touch with us. So
absolutely,
please reach out.
And Brandon, I think you're most known as a producer of local music shows. So before we get into some of the stuff that you have coming up, let's talk about your history with putting together music productions. How long have you been doing this? How did it originate? Tell us the birth of Wright Live.
So I used to play in a emo screamo band called Dreaming of Eden a long time ago, when in my early 20s. In Manassas, and there were several events where we would play, local places downtown. Obviously, there's no sound. We're, young guys, so we would piece together speakers, mixers, whatever we could find, and I would jump back there and fiddle around. And I became really interested in it when we went on tour. We toured the U.S., and I got to see the way all the different sound guys did different things their way, and I was really fascinated by it. So when I returned, a few years later, became a DJ. Got really interested in sound, and it just kind of became part of what we are, what I am, and what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. How far back is that? When does Wright Live?
Wright Live goes back it'll be 6 years.
6 years, yeah.
In May.
Okay.
Right around the time that
2019
COVID was coming around, we had just launched officially right before COVID, and then COVID hit, and I was like, well, I guess I'm done. You know what I mean? That was really the thought that was going through my head. So, 2019, man, was the official.
that for us, for Nick and I, for Seven Arts Archives, like our origin is 2019 as well, right?
Awesome.
We have this incredible year leading up to the pandemic where we did a bunch of shows with Frederick Arts Council at Sky Stage in Frederick, Maryland. All of that's on our YouTube channel. Let's talk about some of the projects that you have coming up in the future. Nick, if you don't mind, can we bring up the May 9th show that Brandon, I'm going to go ahead and tell everyone what you have going on.
Yeah, so May 9th, we put together a show because, Breach the Silence, we're always looking for new places to play. Mm-hmm. And we haven't played Bright Box Theater yet, so I contacted Nick Helmet from Bright Box. We set up a date, and it turns out that this date also is a special date for our bassist Corey's wife's birthday. Mm-hmm. So she will be celebrating her birthday that night as well. We got St. Diablo coming up, which they're always a good time. Good friends, good homies from a long time ago. And our new friends, Devil in Disguise, will be on board as well. We just played a show with them at the Rex a week ago. Mm-hmm. So fantastic
awesome.
Lineup, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
That venue is in Winchester, Virginia, the Bright Box
That's right.
Theater.
Right in downtown. Walking hall.
Right. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's awesome. Let's take a look at our next one, Nick. Go ahead.
So this is one of my favorite local, just straight up pissed off bands, Dead Switch. They hit me up because they wanted to do a comeback show because they had taken a hiatus for a while, weren't sure if they were even going to be a band, and then they made some changes and they're back and they're going to be releasing new music. It's very exciting. So they hit me up and they were like, hey, we want a place and we want to kick the heck out of Granny's. And I'm like, you sure? They said, yeah. So that's where we're going to do it. We got God of Nothing on that, Behead the Betrayer, and Flesh of the Lotus. I mean, you want to talk about a heavy lineup. That's it right there.
Dead Switch, that's Corey, right?
No, he's no longer with that band, actually.
Who's in Dead Switch now?
So right now they've got Derek, they've got James, Nate, and I believe it's Sheldon.
Okay, because I was thinking like they were part of the lineup that we did at the Apollo Theater.
Yeah,
Dead
that's
Switch
right.
Was one of the, that was, I think that show was like 2020 or that was just coming out of COVID.
Yeah,
we did this crazy show called the Dead of Winter Music Festival.
That was a great show.
It's on live stream. We had a 19-hour day. We raised a pathetic $500 for the Apollo Theater. But pandemic in the middle of the winter. But it was really a neat experience to have that, to have the Apollo Theater kind of to yourself. I think Martinsburg. I think it's one of the best things in Martinsburg. Yeah. It's the Apollo. I wish it well. What's our next flyer? You want to read that one?
So we have Friday, May 23rd, Reign of Z, the Almas, 12 Sins, Sonic Disciple, and that's also going to be at Granny's. So a guy I know, James Cripps, he's with Blind Anxiety Entertainment down south, like I believe North Carolina. They do a lot of bookings down there, and he trades a lot of shows with me. So he'll send me bands like Reign of Z, the Almas. He's sent me bands like Lilac in the Past and others. So
tell me, where are these bands? They're coming a distance to play. Yeah,
they're traveling from down south. Yep.
Yeah. I love that, and I really want audiences to come out when you have bands coming up, Right. Yeah, that's fantastic.
It's a cool thing to host bands from out of town.
Yeah. Most of them end up staying the night, so they, experience Winchester or Martinsburg. I think that's really neat, Yeah. And what's our next one?
Black Secrets, a tribute to Alice in Chains. Riot, a tribute to Paramore. So those are two really, really strong, really rocking tribute bands. We've been getting a lot more into tribute bands this year, just trying something different out that I don't normally. Yeah. And that's going to be at Tilty McFlippers, June 27th. Very much looking forward to that one.
Yeah, that would be a lot. I saw Alice in Chains in like the early 90s. They were part of the Lollapalooza tour, and they actually, the show took place at the racetrack in Jefferson County. They would do the Lollapalooza. They did it for a few years in the center of the track. I thought it was really cool. Metallica fucking played there.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. All right, let's get into Breach the Silence.
All right.
Let's go ahead and pull up the first picture we have. All right, Brandon, that is an awesome picture. That's fantastic. Let's talk about your bandmates. Let's talk about the band.
Right.
We have a song that we want to listen to, and we have a few other stills. So how about you talk about these guys? We'll take a listen to the song, and then we'll close with the other stills.
Okay. Well, on the far left is Landon. He actually works with me in Wright Live. He's my stage and lighting guy. He's amazing, and he's the drummer of the band. And then you have Dan and Corey on my left and right. They're actually original OG members of the band. They started the band and have been doing it for a very long time, over 15 years now, I'd say. Dan plays guitar, Corey plays bass, good buddies of mine. And then on the far right is Blake. He also plays guitar. He jumped in right around the Apollo's Prophecy days when they were kind of having a big transition, and stuck around to do the Breach thing. He's an awesome dude as well. So just a cool unit that we've been able to jam with.
I was thinking about this before we get into the song. Everyone in this area considers you a serious artist, right? So I would think that the musicians that are collaborating with you are on that same level, that they're all serious musicians. So let's take a listen to this song, and then we'll talk about, how this song got put together, how you guys do this kind of stuff.
Okay.
Underneath this disguise
absolutely badass.
Thanks,
yes. Fuck yeah.
Appreciate it.
Oh, hell yeah. I love that we can do that as part of the show. So let's talk about the song. Let's talk about everyone involved in the recording. And then we'll close with a couple of those pictures that you guys have from that one show.
So we had the opportunity to record with the mighty Stephen Burns, who you know, drummer of all the bands. The dude's amazing. So we got to do that. The song is actually kind of an idea shaped out of Daniel, our guitarist. He was kind of going through some things in his life, and he kind of brainchilded that, and then we just ran with it. And again, like I was telling you earlier, it was the first song that I got to be featured on vocally, so it was kind of like our coming out, so to speak. Like, hey, we're Breach the Silence with this new thing going on. So it was a really cool experience.
No, I think the song is really fantastic. Let's take a look at a couple of the pictures. Now, this is the guitar player. Talk about the collaborative process with some of your bandmates. And what's his full name, if you don't mind me?
That's Daniel Sheets. And he's, I love it. Not only is he a great guitarist, he writes great songs, but he has amazing vocals. I mean, he's also the frontman of the Creed tribute band Illusion. So
now, is his vocals on the song that we...
Oh, yeah. All the chorus singing, that's him.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Pretty much whenever you hear cleans, almost all the time, it's going to be him. And I kind of do the little harmonies here and there, but he's amazing. I mean, the guy's a powerhouse.
Top notch. Our next image...
So that's Corey Cunningham. He's our bassist, as you can see. And he's actually kind of the I would call him the leader of the band. He's the guy, he's the driving force. So he's the guy that's like, hey guys, we need to get together and practice. Hey guys, what date are we doing this? He really pushes us to stay motivated.
That's good. Yeah, you need that.
Every band needs one of them.
Yeah. And the next image that we have.
So this is Blake. Blake is awesome for many reasons other than he's tatted up. He's cool as hell. He rocks the guitar, but if it weren't for Blake, we wouldn't have anywhere to practice. So very pivotal member and just an all-around awesome dude.
Yeah, no. And I think the last images we have again is the full band. Oh, that's you.
Oh, look.
Yeah. How long let's talk about a little bit about you as a performer. And that craft. How long have you been a front man, and how did that happen? How did Brandon Wright become a front man?
So I started off, playing bass guitar in bands when I was a kid, like 13, 14 years old. Switched over to guitar, enjoyed that. I played with Dreaming of Eden for years. We toured. And we had one song where I would get up, I'd put the guitar down, I'd get up and do the frontman thing, and I enjoyed it a ton. So years later, I was like, well, how can I do that again? And, that's when kind of like I went into the Defending Kane years and, jumped in with those guys. And then one day I got hit up by Daniel. He's like, hey, you want to jam with us? And here we are.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I envy and admire about musicians, right, is that collaborative process. That's something that you've been doing since you were 13 years old. The collaborative process as an artist for me was relatively, in the early part of my art life, it was just me. I made 2D art, photography, whatever it was, Yeah. It's not till I got into film and things like that I started working with other artists, right? I'd need to work with editors, sound people. So, I envy, and I think that's a beautiful thing, like that ability to collaborate with other human beings making music. I think that's one of the things that we really supported with the Let There Be Rock School, not only the creative process, but the communication that you develop, the bond, the friendship, and all that. So I think I love the photography. Who did the photography? Because we should give proper credit.
So this is Nutter Photography. They're you'd probably know them best because they've done shoots at Rock the Mountains, which they'll be doing, I think, again this year. Phenomenal dude, Jack Nutter and his crew. Those guys are top-notch professionals. So, they do really cool work. And that venue is the Rex Theater. It was killer.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The lighting design. Now, you said one of the bandmates is the one that was doing lighting. Did he have anything to do with the lighting in this one?
No. So we didn't have anything to do with the production of that show.
Yeah, that one's top notch. Great photography and great imagery. So I wish you nothing but success with all of your projects. I think you know that, Brandon.
Thank you.
Before we get into the more conspiratorial part of the show, again, how can people follow you? What's you pay Facebook? I mean, is that your main?
Facebook is definitely the main thing. So, if you want to find us, Breach the Silence on Facebook or, Wright Live on Facebook. Just shoot us a message.
Yeah, and you've got a great public following out there. You got a lot of shows coming up. You do a lot for the music community. I support everything that you do, and I wish you nothing but success.
Thank you.
Let's test the board. Is the X-Files? We got the X-Files. Cool. Let's hit the Predator. Predator scream. Pretty cool with it.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
All right. I thought I'll do the X-Files one more. Yeah, there you go. 28 days. That's me 28 days into lockdown. That's my all-time favorite profile picture. I mean, that's the definition of social distancing. No one wanted to be beside me. But that's about 28 days into lockdown. So I thought you and I would have some fun and we would talk about some of the changes, right? You and we met during COVID. It's a real thing. It was a real experience. Here, I even brought my favorite COVID mask. This Miss Rose Sanders Mendez from Shepherdstown did this one. She also did this one. And I went to the hospital once with COVID, right? It was filling up my lungs and I had the vaccine and I'd had a booster when I got that. I think I've had it about 3 times. So when I heard about Dr. Fauci getting a preemptive pardon, I hadn't really thought about COVID since we had gotten out of it, right? It was something I most definitely wanted to put in the past. But I'm listening. I'm like, pardon? What the fuck? So, Nick, let's go ahead and give some context to the first part of the conversation that we're going to have. We picked a few minutes. This is the longest clip that we're going to watch. This is about 3-4 minutes. And then, Brandon, I want to hear your thoughts on his pardon.
Okay.
The crime, potentially, is advocating that public tax dollars be spent on reckless scientific experimentation on viruses in unsafe Chinese labs and then misleading or even lying to Congress about whether he did so. That is the serious critique of Fauci, who is the foremost public advocate of gain-of-function research, the manipulation of dangerous viruses to make them more deadly and more contagious, theoretically, in order to better understand them. We do not know that such research is what caused the COVID-19 pandemic, but we do know that scientists sought grant funding to engage in exactly the kind of research that could have produced COVID-19, and they plan to do that research in Wuhan, China. Seems well worth investigating to me. Now, keep in mind that concerns about this research were never partisan to begin with. In fact, to his credit, President Barack Obama became very worried about it back in 2014. That year, Obama issued a pause on public funding of gain-of-function research, and even asked scientific teams already engaged in such research to, hey, could you cut it out on a voluntary basis? That's how concerned Obama was. Now, this news at the time received a neutral or even a favorable write-up in the New York Times, which quotes multiple infectious disease experts, not crazy right-wing people, but mainstream voices, as supporting the pause on gain-of-function research. Okay, here is where things get interesting. 2 years ago, as part of a lawsuit against the Biden administration for censoring COVID-related speech, Fauci sat for a lengthy deposition and answered questions about many topics, including for gain-of-function research. You might remember I did a radar on this 2 years ago. Here was the key part. Fauci was asked whether he recalled if there was a legal exception regarding the pause on gain-of-function research from 2014. Here's what he said in response, and I'm quoting directly from his deposition. He affirmed there was such an exception. Quote, "Yeah, the deliberations at the time, based on the need to continue certain critical research, that an exception clause was put in saying that under special circumstances," and I'll read it so that you get an understanding, "an exception from the pause may be obtained if the head of a U.S. government funding agency determines that the research is urgently needed to protect the public health or national security," end quote. Fauci was then asked whether he ever invoked that exception, since he was the head of just such a funding agency. Fauci replied, quote, "As I recall, exceptions were given to a couple of experiments," end quote. Fauci went on to say he did not remember specifically signing off on the exceptions, and that it may have been done by his deputies rather than by him. The papers might have crossed his desk. He can't quite remember. Fauci's also sparred very publicly with Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, who has accused the doctor of making misleading testimony before Congress about whether research he funded met the definition of gain-of-function research, which is, of course, a potentially criminal issue. Okay, keep all that in mind. The text of Biden's pardon for Fauci from yesterday states that he is being pardoned for any and all offenses he may have committed or taken part in as director of the National Institutes for Allergies and Infectious Diseases, as a member of the White House Task Force on COVID, or as chief medical advisor to the president. The pardon also contains a note on the time period it covers. This is the key fact. Note that the pardon is not confined to the time period of the pandemic when Fauci was the COVID advisor, say January 1st, 2020. It's also not backdated to encompass Fauci's entire time as the head of that institution, which stretches back to 1984. So let's be clear on this. It's neither super narrow, i.e. just covering COVID, nor is it super broad, i.e. the whole time that he's the country's top medical guy. The pardon is backdated to encompass a time period that begins January 1st, 2014. Why is that? Well, we may never know for sure, but it certainly seems suspicious to me that 2014 is the year Obama issued that pause on gain-of-function research. I wonder if that was the year that any potential wrongdoing on the part of Fauci
bring it on down.
Does, in fact,
That's the summary. And, when we first started this conversation, I went with left-wing media sources, things that were relatively unbiased. It's concerning because a pardon, I have to commit a crime. A preemptive pardon is there's never been anything like it before. Your thoughts on the news story and this whole idea of, please.
I mean, that's a lot to unpack, and I mean, just a lot to think about after what our country went through. But to me, just focusing on the pardon portion of it, if you have to preemptively pardon someone, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You know that you're trying to protect them from any potential prosecution, right? Any inquisition, because you're trying to cover something. I mean, it's so blatantly obvious, and it's scary.
Yes.
That can be done, and we're all just watching it like, okay, cool, guy. We know something's up. Like, how? So now what?
Right.
Where
does this go?
Where does this go now?
Where does this go?
We know you're wrong.
Right. And will we ever get to the bottom of it? It caught my attention. I almost felt like I'd gotten hit over the head with a bat when I first heard it. And then when the whole word of preemptive, that's what we do in a military strike. You strike early, you strike first, right? But I don't know. I found the whole thing the same as you. I found it very troubling. And then it made me question the entire narrative that we've been given about COVID. Let's go ahead and take a look at our next clip. This is also one of the other narratives that have begun to shift is, and I remember mocking this back in the day, was, whether it was the lab leak or the wet market, right? And you were supposed to believe that the bullshit came from the pergola or some bat soup or something, which never made any sense to me. Like all of a sudden you're supposed to you're supposed to ignore this lab that they have right beside the wet market and focus on some kind of mutant that. Why now? Why would this thing mutate now? Why, I mean, they've had wet markets there for hundreds of years. We don't face mutants except in science fiction. Let's play this next clip.
On lab, it could be demonstrated that people were ill with COVID at the lab prior to the outbreak at the wet market. That would be pretty much a smoking gun. Are these things that are still being looked at by the intelligence agencies actively, or is it known and classified and we're just not privy to it?
Well, I think, unfortunately, the intelligence community's effort doesn't have the energy and staff resources behind it that it once did. I mean, we're talking about a virus that killed more than 1.2 million Americans, more than 7 million worldwide. And it's 5 years after that event. And yes, it's still an open investigation within the intelligence community, but it doesn't have the priority it once had. And one thing that we showed in the article was that President Biden commissioned this review, which was controlled by the Office of Director of National Intelligence. But when it came time to brief the results of this 90-day review to the president and its top aides, there was one agency at that time, the FBI, which has scientists, it's not just a bunch of gumshoe agents, that took the view with moderate confidence it was a lab leak. They weren't present at that briefing at the White House. They weren't invited to that briefing. Now, ODNI, Avril Haines' office, says that they represented all of the contrasting hypotheses accurately, faithfully, and completely. But I think it is striking that the people who were the foremost proponents of the lab leak theory weren't invited by the White House to the actual briefing where these theories were hashed out. Now, there is no smoking gun at this point that could decide it decisively one way or the other. This is still an investigation that needs to continue inside the government or outside of it. But we do know a lot more about what was happening in the lab at the time, the kind of research they were carrying out, the genetic engineering they were doing.
Go ahead and bring it down at genetic engineering, because that's really, I think, the key takeaway. I talked to this friend of mine, right? She comes from a family of scientists. Her older sister went to MIT. She's, and we were talking about the vaccine, and the vaccine. It's a vaccine, as we understand it, in the name only. It's a genetically engineered thing. It's the first time they ever did anything like this mRNA. I don't know. It's strange. Your thoughts on the lab leak? What, back then, now, lab leak versus the wet market. Your thoughts?
So I'm certainly not any kind of qualified, anything to be speaking on this stuff. So anybody who watches this, don't go, oh, what brain doesn't. My own personal thoughts are that I think that there was a lot of information that was misleading and let out because there were not viable explanations at the time. I think that a lot of things that we were told because we needed an explanation for something we didn't understand while they scrambled to cover up clearly the truth, whatever the truth ends up being in this when this all comes out. I mean, it's still coming out, as you can see. There's a ton of information coming out, but this was a huge catastrophe for a lot of reasons. So I think wet market versus, however it was leaked out into the public, I think is completely inconsequential. Just my opinion, but because the truth of the matter is now we know there was either, I don't even want to call it a mistakes made. I think that there were some things that were mishandled in a massive way, and it's just a shame to see all of this kind of information coming out like this. And as the public it's a giant what the fuck.
Right. Yeah. It
You
was
know?
then, and it still is, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And as we were talking earlier, I do think that it's time and it's important for us to pay attention here, right? Because stuff like this can be done again. And I remember thinking, and I still think, like, wait a minute, right? Let's talk about, why are we funding viral genetic manipulation inside of China? Oh, because it's dangerous. We're doing it there instead of here. We're probably still doing it in our own labs, but it made me question, why would we pay for this to be done over there? Because it's dangerous.
Well, that was actually, when we were watching the first clip, I had a question in my head, and it just kept, I'm like, why there? Why would you choose? We see these kinds of things in the movies. Like, why wouldn't you go to some remote island and do testing on, Vorpal bunnies on, whatever, so that it can't escape the island? Or then, in the movies, it always inevitably does, because some doctor gets on a boat, whatever. But like, why specifically there? That seems really weird to me too.
Yeah. And clearly there's a long history with that particular lab, because they're talking about the pardon goes back to 2014. You have Obama saying, hey, maybe we should stop this dangerous stuff that we're doing over here. It's interesting to see the narrative change. Fauci has been brought up on a couple of different episodes of Rogan. I think I sent you a clip that Woody Harrelson, that make you question, because back then they always painted him as almost like the Pope or something, and I think back, and sometimes I was shocked at how compliant I was with everything. I did what, I'm a responsible citizen. I'm going to do whatever. I'll put the fucking mask on. I'll take the fucking shots. Can we just get back to some degree of normal? But let's go ahead. What's our next one there? Oh, this is a good one. This is the new press secretary, Trump's press secretary. One of the major stories that broke were that 6 CIA analysts, 6 whistleblowers came forward talking about their information being suppressed as well. So we're going to play this clip. I think this is from the first day of the Trump administration.
CIA actually revealed that they do also believe that COVID-19 was from a lab leak in Wuhan, China. How is the president planning on responding to this additional intel from the CIA, and will it impact how he responds to them with tariffs?
Yeah, kudos to John Ratcliffe for revealing that truth and that fact to the American people. Many years too late, the Biden administration had a chance to let the American people know the truth about that, and for some reason, they chose not to. I also would just like to point out that several years ago, when I was working in this press shop and President Trump would take to this podium to brief the American people on COVID-19, he suggested that COVID very well may have came from a lab in Wuhan, China. And many members in this very room mocked him for that, said he was spewing conspiracy theories. He was not. We now know that to be the confirmable truth. It took many years for it to come out, but the president was right in this instance again.
We'll hold up on the Zuckerberg one. Yeah. It's the suppression of information that I find most disturbing about all of this. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That they would purposely steer a narrative, which brings us to our next clip. This is Zuckerberg on Rogan. This one is fairly short again, and after this we'll pick up and we'll talk a little bit about the distortion and suppression of information.
I'd say during the Biden administration when they were trying to roll out the vaccine program. And I'm generally pretty pro rolling out vaccines. I think on balance the vaccines are more positive than negative, but I think that while they're trying to push that program, they also tried to censor anyone who is basically arguing against it. And they pushed us super hard to take down things that were honestly were true, right? I mean, they basically pushed us and said, anything that says that vaccines might have side effects, you basically need to take down. And I was just like, well, we're not going to do that. Like, we're clearly not going to do that. I mean, that is kind of inarguably true.
Who is they? Who's telling you to take down things that
it was
that talk about vaccine side effects?
It was people in the Biden administration.
For me, censorship is like the greatest sin that I can't tolerate, and I will never. I've always felt like as a citizen, as a free thinking person, I need the information to decide for myself, right? That's part of being able to make a good choice, is that you want to be able to look at all the information.
Right.
You know, your thoughts on the Zuckerberg clip?
I mean, I've seen that clip before. It's definitely shocking to see someone in his position basically be coerced into doing something. And I'm impressed with his response. He said, no, I'm not going to do that, despite the pressure he was given. So that's interesting that he would take that stance on that. But kudos to him for doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know what side he leans politically, but I'm sure that may not have a factor in this. But I think his position as a businessman, I mean, he's in charge of probably the biggest platform on earth. So that's huge.
It's the Rogan interview with Zuckerberg is worth the watch. There's roughly a 15-minute clip related to all of it, and the one thing is, he says that they came after him, which they did. They started taking him to court. It was costing him a lot of money. All of these things to coerce him. But he also goes into that they were demanding that they, and this is where the whole fact checker thing started too, which was during COVID. And I didn't even know that there was such a thing, but there's like an industry of people that they hire that go on Facebook and other social media and basically decide what is right and wrong. I thought that I find that kind of shit terrifying personally. Anyway, your thoughts on where we're at with this COVID thing?
Well, as far as where we're at, I mean, I think it's scary because a lot of people lost people. Okay,
yeah.
Like my grandfather passed away shortly after he took the vaccine. Okay, and now for those of you watching, I'm totally okay with saying I never did because I was terrified of it. I felt like something was not right.
Yeah,
and my grandfather was the healthiest man I ever knew. 94, 96. I believe he was years old, and he died shortly after. I'm not saying the vaccine killed him. I'm not saying it didn't, but that was a huge wake up moment for me. I was like, something is way off here. I have other friends that passed away when they, got COVID and then had to go into the hospital. Apparently, they put them on the ventilators, and that was like a death sentence. I mean, everything that people went through, not just in this country, but throughout the world during that period of time, it's like, my view is somebody's got to answer for that. Yes. We won't get any of these people back. I have people that lost their jobs in the medical field because they wouldn't take the vaccine. Well, good for them. Good for them for standing strong. I won't mention names, but there are people that I know that went through that. And will they get any restitution for that? We may never know. They should, I think. Right. There's a lot of loss during that period of time. So it's like, seeing all of this now is just this huge kind of wake up call, but it's kind of a slap in the face too, like, wow, everything we went through, even us, like during that period of time, it brought us all together in a way that it couldn't have.
Yes.
I mean, we have connections, friendships and connections we built. So I'm thankful for that. But,
and a shared vision if we want to get back to normal.
Sure.
Following up on with this connected to your grandfather. It's your grandfather, you said.
Correct.
Right? Nick, play this last clip, and then we'll bring this conversation
The countdown
to a
is
close.
on to January 20th, but there is still one very big question. Will we ever get an official investigation into the COVID-19 vaccines? The largest research study on the jab was recently republished after a successful peer review, and its findings are shocking.
Put it up on the
Here to break
screen?
it all down for us is Dr. Peter McCullough. He's a renowned cardiologist and leading voice in the COVID-19 vaccine transparency. So, Dr. McCullough, in your medical opinion, how reliable is this study, and what can you tell us about it?
The study relied on autopsies that were done and actually were in the peer-reviewed literature, so they gave lots of details on the findings. all the data were extracted, they were put in to independent files, and then independently adjudicated with knowledge now what we know the vaccines caused in terms of, their safety warnings. And what was determined is that about 74% of all the deaths that have occurred after vaccination that have come to autopsy, in fact, the vaccines caused the death.
So can you just break this down a little bit in terms of the context, right? And what people have been saying over the last few years. Shouldn't this shock people, or should they be surprised?
The peer-reviewed literature has now about 4,000 papers on fatal and non-fatal vaccines, disabilities, and deaths. So no, it's not a shock. The very first peer-reviewed publication of a man dying after the COVID-19 vaccine was published in the New England Journal of Medicine in the summer of 2021. And the FDA has in its warnings that the vaccines do cause heart damage or myocarditis. And I can tell you clinically as a cardiologist, myocarditis, its most common manifestation after vaccination is sudden death or cardiac arrest.
So when we look at the mRNA vaccines, where do they go from here? Do they have a future? Do you think that they get shut down at this point?
There are multiple calls to shut it down, that the platform is not safe, that none of the COVID-19 vaccines are safe for human use. The World Council for Health.
All right, so they called this whole thing when they were trying to roll that vaccine out, they called it warp speed. I mean, that should have, there were so many red flags with it. And the one thing, it's strange, Brandon, but it feels longer than 5 years. Like 5 years it seems like decades ago. Yeah. But it's only been 5 years since we were wearing the mask and, and let me see. Do you think we're back to normal? Like when you go to the music shows, when you go to Breach the Silence, does it feel like 2019 yet?
Back to normal, I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, we've changed. Society's changed. Our cultures have changed. Yeah. People don't attend events the same as they used to. People are reluctant to go out to things now. So that's all a byproduct of COVID, and we've all talked about it a million times. Yeah. I think the biggest thing that's hard for me to swallow watching all this, of course, is just looking back at what we all went through, because we were told, for the better good, we need to wear a mask, for the better good, this, and we tried to do our best to get through a time that we didn't understand, and now to find out that this could have been purposely done accidentally, and we knew stuff that we didn't. Of course, it's conspiracy theory. It's the government. There's going to be a lot of stuff that we don't know. Right. Okay, but to hear it now, 5 years later,
right. And we're only touching the surface of it, because you start to get into Fauci and you find out he made up, like, a lot of the mitigation shit that you're talking about was just fucking made up. The whole 6 foot thing, right? Made up, right? All of these different things that they came up with were made up, arbitrary. And to see, we can't put our blind trust into science. I know science and medicine, everyone wants to give blind trust there, but I always go back to think about how the world will look at the COVID vaccine and the medicine of 2020 100 years from now. It'll be like us looking back at the Civil War. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like, oh my God, they used to cut people's legs off and give them leeches, and they'll go, oh, you used to take mRNA vaccines. But I've worked in mental health for a long time, right? And I always felt like I'm in Wizard of Oz, and I pull back that curtain, and I'm like, holy fucking shit! This is what a doctor is, He's just a man. He's just a man. He makes mistakes, and I was thinking that the same people that are telling you to get the jab are the same ones who were telling you how safe lobotomies were. 40,000 Americans got lobotomies, right? So, I think being a skeptic and having a certain degree of skepticism, and I had no clue that you didn't get the jab. So that awesome for you. Good move.
Well, we'll
Good
see.
move.
I'm sure after airing this, somebody's going to come after me.
Yeah. I always feel like I'm in alien covenant and I'm waiting for the thing to just come out of my back or something. Brandon, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show and for having this conversation with me. And I want to stress to you and to anyone, I'm not trying to advance any kind of agenda. I want to have conversations with people I know and trust, right?
Sure.
We can go as lighthearted as you want because I threw at you. I have this one, the Cocoa Puffs. There's some kind of crazy conspiracy behind Cocoa Puffs. It's a great video, but I can go as lighthearted as anyone wants or more serious, and that's what I wanted with you. I trust you. I respect you. It was a shared experience. So to hear your perspective on this, it meant a lot to me. One last time, how people can follow you on Wright Live.
You guys can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, www.wrightliveevents.com. Send us a message. We'd love to hear from you.
Please like the show, share the show, subscribe to the channel. And again, one more time, Brandon, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Don.
Really
Thanks, Nick.
Nick.
We appreciate you guys.
Go ahead and bring us out, Nick.